everybody. Welcome to a super special episode of Storytellers. I'm really excited to launch into something new here for the first time that we are doing on Storytellers, and it's going to become a monthly habit that we are going to have here, a monthly series, we can call it. I have a super special guest. She has become a friend. She's become a partner in crime in this new business venture that I've entered into. And I'm so excited to tell you about it with her here, and have her with as my co-host as part of this new series. So I will introduce her. She's right here. Amanda Savory. Hello.
Hi everyone. Thanks for having me. I'm equally excited to be here and chat with you today about all of this exciting fun stuff.
So Amanda is a luxury event planner. She and I have been following each other on Instagram for the past year and a half since I
Yeah.
got engaged.
Hmm.
You do a lot of weddings at Cedar Lakes Estates, which I was looking at
Yes.
for my wedding. And I loved the weddings you did there. And so I followed Amanda being like, if I get married here, she is going to be my planner. And I ended up not getting married there, but somewhere along the way, Amanda followed me back and I didn't know. And one day she DM'd me and I was like, oh my God.
I'm so flattered and humbled. That's so sweet.
I was so excited that she DM'd me, and we had kind of briefly gone back and forth and stayed in touch ever since. And I had this kind of wild idea in the new year, and I went right to Amanda with it. And we are finally launching it literally this Thursday. And I'm really excited for us to tell people what we're doing, and what we've been working on for the past, I say 2 months, it's really been like 6 weeks.
Oh my
um,
gosh.
it really hasn't been that
Yeah.
long, and we pulled it together, and, um, Amanda really was the one who gave me the confidence to be like, "Okay, this is a good idea."
It's a great idea. It's a very exciting, needed idea within the wedding industry as a whole. So I'm very grateful and excited to be a part of it because it's a fantastic idea and I can't wait to
I
tell everyone about it.
We're gonna tell everyone. So, obviously, I've been in journalism, I've been in news, and the industry's changed a lot, and I was just really missing something that felt community oriented. And so I was thinking about something that's been hard for me and something that I wish that I had community surrounding. And that ended up being the season that I'm in right now. It ended up being brides and wedding planning. And if anybody here listening knows a bride, is a bride, odds are you've cried more in the last year of your, or more in the last however many months, year of your engagement than you have like your entire relationship. That's at least how I felt. I felt like I was stranded on an island alone and I was like, well, how did I get here? And who's with me? And nobody's talking about it. I felt very alone. And that's where I came up with this idea, this concept of what do I do? And it is a bridal company that offers resources, education, access, and of course, community to brides, to new brides that are, you know, struggling to feel empowered in their wedding planning season. And nobody else has done this. Nobody else has done this for the brides. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it because as a bride, there's so much information out there.
Yep.
Um and with social media and the internet and people who have gotten married within your family and your friends, it is a hard thing to navigate. And you're so excited once you get engaged, but where do you go from there? It's a
Exactly.
lot. It's a lot of conversations, it's a lot of research. And I think that yes, there is, you have Zola, you have brides and stuff to go and look and kind of figure this out and navigate what your first step is after you get engaged. But even with that, there just is not that community and the resources that I think is needed essentially to alleviate some of that initial stress because you are
Right.
overloaded with the information that is out there for you. So it's like really truly,
Exactly.
where do you start and you don't want to have your happiness deflated when you just start looking on the internet. I can't even imagine as a
Yes.
bride, like going down that rabbit hole. Um, and
It's
so,
really hard,
yeah.
especially with the information online, and that's why this company is going to take a lot of that guesswork out of it. Like, you read a bajillion things online, and then you have to try to make a decision.
Mhm.
This brand is going to give you the tools to have the information and education to make the informed decision that's best for you, because weddings aren't one size fits all. Not no
Not at
bride is
all.
the same. No one has the same budget. Nobody has the same vision, and you're going to want to do things in a different order because there's different things that are important to you. So
Mhm.
what you
Absolutely.
take away from this is then just going to we're giving you the information to feel empowered in your decision making.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it is so needed within this industry. And it allows you to kind of cut through all of the minutia too, and really, like you're
Mhm.
saying, empower them to ask questions when talking to different creative
Yeah.
partners and looking and speaking to venues when you're doing a venue tour. We want to give you those tools, and also the community of other brides that are going through this. I
Yep.
think it's fantastic to have you guys all come together and be able to talk and be resources for each other. As you know, we as women, like even just becoming friends, we are empowering each other, and we've shared resources, and look at what is starting to evolve from that relationship. So I can only
Right.
imagine when you bring brides together, that is also going to happen for them, and hopefully be able to alleviate some of that stress while
Yes.
you are going through this planning process. And
Yeah. Make
like
it
you said,
fun.
weddings are not one dimensional. And a
Mhm.
lot of the information that is put out there is incorrect because it is more of a blanketed statement. There's so many different markets. There's all different guest counts,
Yep.
different price points, different family dynamics.
Yes.
There's so many layers when it comes to your wedding. So the goal with What Do I Do, is to really, like you said, give them the tools to empower them and feel good about having hard conversations
Yeah.
with their family, figuring out what the priorities are with your fiance,
Yep.
uh, and then being able to set you guys up for success. And I think that really does come within a community too.
I think that there really is so much to be said about, you know, kikiing with your fellow brides. I know when I first got engaged and I was feeling so down, you feel that sense of like guilt too, because you're like, this is supposed to be the happiest moment of my life. Why am I feeling so stressed? Why is this so hard? And
Mhm.
it feels like it shouldn't be hard. Like, it's supposed to be so happy and fun. And finally, there was one girl that was getting married in like 2 months, and she was a friend of a friend, and we were at like a Halloween party, and she was like, "No one talks about it, but it sucks." And we've
Uh-huh.
been, she was like, "We've fought more than we have in our whole relationship, and my parents and I are fighting, and this and that." She said, "I can't wait for the day to be over." And I kind of was like,
Oh,
"Yikes, I'm not getting married for 2 more for like another year and a half." Like,
yeah.
I have to go through that for 2 years, and that was so daunting, but at the same time, it was like, why does no one talk about this? And so,
Mhm.
being able to feel alongside of her, "Oh, I'm not alone. This is
Mhm.
hard." And then, a year and a half later being like, "How can I fix that?" Feeling, like,
Mhm.
comfortable enough in it, being like, "How can I fix that feeling?" Like, I'm excited for these girls to this community to also help inform me of, like, what more we can do to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, within the wedding industry, you have Pinterest, you have
Mm,
Instagram, you have TikTok now. So you are seeing the best and the loveliest parts of the wedding industry because we don't show you guys the behind the scenes. I don't do that. You'll see that on my Instagram. I think that is a fault of ours and of myself, and also just within the wedding industry as a whole, because there's not a whole lot of transparency
right.
within this world, essentially. Um, And I think that that's part of the problem. I
Yeah.
don't know how to necessarily change that, but I think that this is a really good step in that direction, and allowing us to educate in the way that we want to, and have it be more authentic with uh, conversations and in-person events where we can talk to brides, or conversations like this even are so helpful. And I think that that will hopefully help to start like changing the dynamic and the way that we
Yeah.
look at this industry and the way that we plan with couples, and just creating some transparency that essentially should be there for you guys, and it's not right
Absolutely.
now. So
Right, and that people should have some, like, basis of knowledge of even before they get engaged. I think that
mhm,
that is, like, the big thing about it. You don't know anything about this industry or this world until you're in it,
mhm,
and you don't know really what you're getting into, and so if there's some sort of kind of conversation that is starting, that friends start talking with their friends about it, and it just becomes more of a, normal conversation, then there's not going to be so much shock and
exactly,
sadness
exactly.
and anxiety and
Mhm.
stress.
Yeah, I mean, there and conversations, I think it's so interesting because one of the first things that I talk to with my couples, and now it's with the couples and the parents, if dependent upon who is taking care of the majority of the financial
Mhm.
aspects of it. So that just alone, we lead with the difficult conversations
Right.
first. Um, and I find that over the past almost 10 years. Next year will be my 10-year anniversary with Ace, but I've been in the event industry for 20 years at this point, which is crazy. But that is something I at first when I started my business, I was like, oh my gosh, like, okay, we have to talk about the budget, but how do I do this when there's all these different family dynamics? But now it's required once we are working with you, the first meeting that we have, I don't want to talk about your flowers or your color palette or dresses or any of that stuff. We're going to sit down and we're going to have a real transparent conversation about the budget, who is taking care of what, and what the priorities are for that weekend or that day, because a lot of the stuff we do is Friday to Sunday. So
Mhm.
but you have the one day, the Saturday weddings or Sunday, whatever day you're getting married on. So we're taking this into consideration because once you have that conversation, it is so much easier to kind of dive in with the couple and have a more enjoyable process. And
You're
hopefully
not the
try to keep
bad
them that
guy.
stress free.
Right, you're not the bad guy the whole time being like,
No.
like, "I know you showed me that Pinterest photo, but it's not in your budget," and you don't even accept Pinterest photos actually, right?
No, I don't. So I think like honestly, the way that we work is a little bit different. I really because I do think Pinterest is misleading. I think social media is very misleading. I mean, we all know this about social media.
Yeah,
So, and I used to
very
in the
hard for
beginning.
brides.
Yep, I used to in the beginning, and then I quickly learned that it was setting them up for failure because we would have a Pinterest photo or a Pinterest board, and I'm looking at the photo. I'm like, that is a $750 arrangement. They have 20 tables, and not to mention all of the installation. So you're looking at this is like a $1 million wedding, probably. Or 750,000, or they have 100 grand for their floral budget for that reception. But then you have your ceremony, you have your rehearsal, you have a
Mhm.
welcome party, a brunch. There's just all of these other elements. So I quickly learned that it's a lot easier to have the conversation about design and experience for your guests, and take true inspiration from the couple's surroundings in their apartment, talk to them about where they've traveled, like really dig in and get to know the couple. So that way we can create something that's a little bit more original than just a Pinterest photo.
Yeah,
Because a lot of the times in the beginning, especially when Pinterest was very popular as a resource for brides, and it still is to a certain degree, I find that there are things that are helpful with Pinterest, but honestly, it's not something that we utilize a lot as a tool. Um, but getting to know the couple and the family dynamics and spending time with them in their environment, that is what allows us to start creating a more personalized, like original design for them. And it is starting from scratch to a certain degree, but it also allows us to figure out who the right creative partner is when it comes to a florist or a designer, and what those costs are going to be essentially.
Mhm.
So yes, I am not a planner that accepts a Pinterest board anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I mean, I really like, I like that a lot, and it has allowed us to have some incredibly cool, unique,
Unique,
personalized,
creative.
creative
Yeah.
weddings with our couples. And that's exciting for us. So we do dig in a little bit differently when it comes to that. I have a background in marketing. I have a catering background. I've worked
Mm,
in florals and with rentals and everything. So my brain works a little bit differently. And I'm very happy that I have all of those different experiences to add into my repertoire, because I think that
mhm.
helps with working with our couples a lot too. So our
Definitely.
planning our planning process is a little bit different than I think some other planners are, but this is a very there's a lot of couples out there, and there's enough, the right couples will find the right planners, and
Definitely.
vice versa. So
Yeah. What is your suggestion for couples when they are looking for their planner? You know, there
yeah,
is a personality match thing. There is a
definitely.
style thing. How do you really know that before you get into it?
So I think it's really important. One, the first step after getting engaged is really truly sitting down with your fiance and parents to figure out what that budget is going to be. And it doesn't have to, like, there is a part of education that has to happen and occur. And once you find that planner, that person's going to also be able to help you kind of navigate what that is. And that budget could fluctuate. So I think that that is very important. I know that when couples come to us, they're also probably interviewing a couple
Yeah.
other planners, which is absolutely what they should be doing. You should do that. Unless you absolutely know, like, hey, I'm definitely going to work with them. I mean, we've had couples who have sisters, and I've done like an older sister and a younger sister's wedding. So that's like great that they know how we work essentially. Uh,
Mhm.
but really just an in-person conversation and or Zoom, dependent upon like where you are at, is always, you need to have FaceTime with that person. Definitely checking out their websites and their Instagram. I think talking to other people that the bridal, so it's funny because it's such a big industry, and it's like $1 billion of like industry, but the bridal community is smaller than
Mhm.
what one actually thinks. So there's, especially with social media now, like brides will see, like, I know that girl. So they'll ask to have references, or they'll reach out to friends who have used us before to talk to them about their experience. So I think just really vetting them out first and foremost. And then it's really important to understand the different types of planners that you have to choose from
Oh,
as
yeah.
well too. So when I started ACE, we offered partial planning, which was like 6 months and up to the wedding. And 3 month planning. I don't believe in day of coordination. I can't imagine a couple having to hand over their wedding for even like month of is challenging. Like, who wants to be like answering a bunch of questions after you've planned for like 12 months and then, or 11 months, then you're handing off your wedding to somebody. So I think be very careful in regards to um those, like understanding what the value is within those and how those companies kind of like work essentially. I don't think it is out there. I don't think it's the worst thing to do. to hire a planner that doesn't do full service, but just understand how many weddings are they taking? How is your team structured? How many weddings are you doing in a weekend, essentially? So it was very challenging to take weddings that were planned by the couple and then try to go through and utilize a certain amount of like leftover budget to make things happen for them. And that made me sad because it really didn't set either parties up for like success,
Success.
essentially.
Right.
Um, and that also kind of stressed me out because I'm like, I'm not going to be able to provide them what I want to get for them
Right. You don't
because
know what you're walking into.
exactly. And that was so challenging. And it really I felt bad for the couple too, because I'm like, that was when I'm saying, no, we can't do this. And that's a horrible thing, a horrible feeling to have as a planner. So
Right.
I quickly removed those services and we are only full service with creative direction because the main thing that I want to have within my company is collaboration. And that
Mhm.
is collaboration with all of the creative partners that are hired to produce and execute this wedding and the couple. I want the
Yeah.
couple to be involved within this collaboration with these creative partners. It is your voice, and we have experience and opinions, and we have a great network and all of these things, but your voice should be heard and you should be listened to. I think that with full planning, that allows us to do that from the very
From the
beginning.
beginning.
And so again, it's trying to crack the code on making this the most enjoyable and stress-free experience that we possibly can for you. And by being a full service planner, only taking a certain number of weddings a year, we only take one wedding a weekend. At
Yeah.
this point, too, we're only taking like one wedding a month because
Yeah.
our productions are 3 days and they're very built out. There's a lot of different dynamics in it. And I think it's really important that our couples have the time and access to us that they are paying for and that they
Yeah.
deserve. So we are strategic about that and when we book the weddings as well too. When I started my business, I wasn't that way. I was burning myself into the ground. And now obviously with experience and age, that
Yeah,
comes
you learn as you
change things.
go.
Yeah, you evolve. And so I think important questions are really trying to understand what your needs are. And
Mhm.
then there do not be afraid to ask questions. I think that sometimes it can be intimidating to couples, but you should. If you have a question, ask that question. Your vendors, creative partners, they should be educating you about even in the
Yeah.
initial conversations. So I think you can, for us, it's great. We can kind of figure out if we're a good fit or not once we dive into what the couple is looking for, what their priorities are. Um, and that's really nice. But just really understanding how their business is structured, how large their team is, how many weddings they take a year. Ask them, like, I think it's also important to not only within that wedding realm, but like understanding our style or that planner's
Yeah.
style. We're not for everybody, and I'm totally cool with that. Everybody is
Right.
not for us. And so I think we finally figured that out like 3 or 4 years ago when we rebranded and everything. And so we have a little bit of an edge to us. We're not
Mm.
traditional. And that really works for us a lot. I
Yeah.
pull inspiration from fashion, from music, from other events that I go out and I'll freelance and work for.
I
Um,
love that you do that.
so yeah, so it's really just I don't look at the traditional inspiration. I don't gather traditional inspiration. I think that kind of sets us apart a little bit. And then I think that those couples kind of gravitate towards us as well too. But there are no wrong questions when you're trying to find that fit with your planner
Fit.
because if you are hiring a planner and you're hiring a full service planner, that planner becomes your advocate and is pulling in all of your other creative partners. So they need to understand you and your personality and what you're looking for
Yep.
uh, because that's a time consuming process, pulling all of these vendors in and creative partners to say, Allie, I think would be an amazing florist for us to have a conversation with because of X, Y, and Z, essentially.
Yeah.
Um, so you need to find that right fit. And I will say in the past that we've had some not right fits and you feel it. You feel it that the client's feeling it, we're feeling it, we get through it. But like, I look at those as learning experiences and I'm like, okay, this is what we got to change. And because I don't want to happen to another couple,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
That's not a good feeling. So it's just as important to us to ask those questions to figure out if we're going to be the right fit for them as well too. So it's a dual interviewing process for us,
Yeah. Oh,
essentially.
completely. It should be.
Um,
It
which
definitely
is
should
good.
be.
And if it's not the greatest fit now, we have we know a little bit more and we're able to I love recommending other planners that might be a
Mm,
good fit
love
for
that.
that couple because then they're going to have a much more enjoyable process. And there has been times where, not many, thank God, but I've gotten better with my ticker a little bit, but like we were in the process and, we realized rather like maybe like in the first 3 months, like this actually isn't the right fit because that first initial conversation is always very exciting. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. But then when you get into it, and again,
Right.
plays into dynamics of the family as well, too. There's so
Mm,
many layers. So when we're getting into it, 2, 3 months down the road, we're like, okay, wait a minute, this actually isn't the best fit. And that is okay. Because again, it's like, you know what? I'm totally fine with it. I'm not taking it personally in any way. They don't take it personally either. And then you set them up with another planner that you do think would be like a good person for them to work with. And then kind of make that transition. So,
yeah.
but yeah, to
Planners,
avoid
just
that.
like the most important thing, I really think like they're your bestie, your entire wedding planning process. And
Yeah.
the trust has to be there, especially if you're like me and you're like a type A bride and you're like, I could plan this all myself, which like I definitely couldn't. But you have to like be like, I feel when I was interviewing planners, I was like, who could I comfortably sit in my makeup chair and get my hair and makeup done on my wedding day and not worry that
Hmm.
something's going wrong
Yeah.
or I'm gonna be like, I don't like this or something. Like
Hmm.
and that's like what I went with. And also too, like you said, making sure that they're not like doing events, 2 weddings a night, 2 weddings
Hmm.
a week, like, not a Friday, Saturday, things like that. And so there's that aspect too that was a really good question that I feel like I had asked when I was talking to people. And, if
Yeah.
you're planning summits and things like that, it might not be weddings, it might be other big productions.
Hmm.
Um,
Absolutely. I mean, and you don't
yeah,
want your planner to be in Europe and then the next weekend
is your wedding.
they come to your wedding, essentially. Uh,
100%.
and that's a challenge sometimes, but for us, that's just not. I don't want that stress, and I don't want that stress to be on our couples. So again, like we've gotten very strategic in regards to the way that we book stuff, and the
Yeah.
clients that we bring on and that hire us as well too. So.
For your brides, what has been like the most common pain point that they've come to you with that they've struggled with?
I think it's honestly the budget and
Yeah.
understanding what things cost.
Yeah.
And because the way that we work too, we try to pull a few different creative partners into a mix. So if we're looking at photographers, I'm looking at probably like 3 to 4 photographers, and then I'm narrowing it down and I'm having like a conversation with a couple before hopping on the phone with like the top two that they think, or even after like going through the options with them, they generally know which one they want to talk to. But we're not talking to 4 different photographers. Like I'm pulling in my resources after understanding and spending a lot of time with the couple. And then presenting some of the best options at different price ranges, but also kind of that overlap as well too. So then we narrow that down and have a conversation with the couple. But it is shocking when couples are receiving these our emails and our conversations with them in regards to pricing.
Mm.
Thankfully, because I've been in this industry so long, I know how to explain the value and like educate the couple. But the majority of this planning is, especially in those beginning months, is the education of what these things
Right.
cost and the value that is associated with them,
Right.
especially in New York City.
Yeah.
We're in one of the most expensive markets to get married. And so, and you want to be able to provide everything that the couple is wants and it can
Right.
encompass for an amazing experience for the guests and for them. But that is a huge pain point because, you know, without all of social media, again, it's a blanket statement that goes out when publications post about the average wedding here, the average wedding here, the average
Right.
wedding in New York City. I'm like, no, 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 this is so wrong. This is inaccurate
And it's
information.
hurtful.
And it happens every year that these
Yeah.
come out. And as event, like we all in this industry dread those when that
Mhm.
comes out because it's inaccurate, becomes a blanket statement. And brides are like, and couples are like, oh my God, so I can do this. And I'm like,
Not
no.
here, you
So
can't.
no, it's like
Right.
retraining them to think differently about
Right.
that information. That is a huge pain point. And
Mhm.
sometimes too, it's not so much anymore because I think we really set the tone for what our process is going to look like, especially with family dynamics. We work with the
Family's hard.
couple a lot. We work with, sometimes I'm talking to the mom, sometimes I'm talking to the dad a lot. Like it really depends. And we talk to everybody, but from the jump, it is a budget conversation and it's with everybody. And also like, who will we be working with? What is this going to look like? Who are the decision makers? Because then it eliminates a lot of stress within that planning process.
Mhm. I think it's
So
hard to, like, especially when if you're the first in your family and you get
mhm,
engaged and like your parents kind of they don't know. They don't know and they think that they have an idea because they got married, and so they
yeah.
kind of come in with that a little bit. And it's interesting, like, a girlfriend and I had this conversation, we got engaged around the same time, and she was paying for her own wedding,
Mhm,
and my parents were very graciously paying for mine and wanted to, and it was a gift, and we she said to me, like, because we were both going back and forth about just how stressful things were and how I had been fighting with my parents. And she was like, I don't know which is worse, like having parents involved or having no parents involved. Like,
mhm.
just in that her parents weren't involved in her life, and so that was, like, a pain point, but my
Yeah.
parents being so involved was a pain point too
Yeah.
in the beginning because they didn't know, they weren't
Mhm.
educated on it either, and I was learning as they were learning, and we had different opinions on things, and, that was, like, a very interesting thought because when you as a planner have those conversations with your brides, with the grooms, with the families, how often is it like, well, I'm paying, but like I I run all the budget stuff by me, but I don't need to pick the design stuff. Like,
Mhm.
how do you even deal with that? Like, that's like, no, but like, I want to be at the tasting though. And like, this is really important to me, but like everything else, it's not, but I just want to sign off on how much things cost. Like, then it gets really like convoluted and tough.
It does. It does sometimes, I think, but it really depends on again how who's on those emails. So again, like thinking I have brides where they're like, okay, keep mom off of this, essentially. And then I bring mom back into the fold
Got it.
when it's necessary. And now again, I have that idea. Like I know when I can see things a little bit further in advance. Like, okay, we're gonna
Yeah.
like this is how we're gonna have to handle this family dynamic and this situation. And honestly, like, and then the mom will give me some maybe I'll have a call with her and then I'll be emailing with the bride essentially. But as a whole, I'm encompassing all of these different personalities and
Personalities. You're the
dynamics.
therapist.
Yes, I wish I really should have went to psychology school, or
Yeah.
at least taken a couple of classes. But it's just handling those family dynamics with patience and, listening to them. A lot of the times it's just that they want to be heard.
They wanna be
They
heard.
want to be heard because something within that family dynamic, they're not being heard essentially. And again, honestly, like once I'm having that conversation with whomever it might be about whatever that pain point might be, it just goes back to that education part because once I can explain things to them or answer their questions, it's like I always end up getting an email like, thank you so much. I feel so much better now that we
Yeah.
talked. It's
Yeah.
like it's honestly, it's like that easy, and I would rather have those conversations in the beginning or throughout that process than, God forbid, the month of the wedding, the week of the wedding, or even the weekend of that wedding, where somebody is not feeling the best within that family or, having some surprise price of something come up, like,
Right.
all of that stuff, you need to be transparent about it,
Yep.
like, if you're extending your photography hours, okay, that's totally cool. We can do that weekend. However, this just keep in mind, it's going to be X amount that you
Addition.
will take care of afterwards.
Right.
So it's not like a surprise. So those kind of conversations in like us honestly talking about rain plans, talking about all the ugly
The
stuff in
hard
the
shit.
beginning,
Yeah.
the hard shit, get it out of the way and do it in the beginning. I think that's probably the biggest lesson that I have learned
Mhm.
throughout this, owning my business, being the head planner, creative director, and everything is just taking care of the hardship first and
Yep.
having an honest conversation and transparency about it with the right people, with the
Mhm.
group that is going. And even if the parents aren't involved, I think it's important to have them be educated about and in that
What's
conversation
happening?
as well too. Because again, back to those dynamics, some parents have strong feelings about something, like whether it's wine service at dinner or you have to like do this, or this is a tradition in our family, and it's our job to figure out how to essentially incorporate certain things and make sure that everybody is on board with doing those things too. So
Mhm.
it's a big puzzle. But like I said, having those hard conversations early on
Early.
will just allow for a much smoother planning process. I won't say that it won't be stressful at some points, but I think it's less stressful, or I hope that it is for the couple
Mhm.
and the family.
Definitely. Definitely. I feel like it would be. And you're right about those early conversations being the tough ones. They almost always are because
Mhm.
you're just all figuring it out and learning
Yeah,
as you go. Um and my mom, that was her thing. Every venue we went to, she was like, "You got to like the rain plan." Like that's you
exactly.
have to love the rain plan.
Absolutely. You have to love your rain plan. And that rain plan should be discussed in the beginning because dependent upon where you are going, that's additional costs that could be incurred if you need to get a tent for
Hint.
whatever reason.
Mhm.
Uh, and that tent could be used for cocktail hour. It could be used for a ceremony. It could be used for a lot of different things, dependent on how your weekend is built out. But understanding that and figuring it out in the beginning, because tents can cost 15, 17,
Yep.
$20,000. And that is a big chunk of change that have that
You may or
conversation
may
in
not
the
need.
beginning.
Right.
Exactly. Exactly. So it
Yeah.
is, yeah, love your rain plan and have
Love
that
your rain plan.
conversation early on.
And then finally, what is just your advice for brides for trying to stay as stress-free as possible? Like, is there anything you tell your girls that's like on even just on wedding day, like let go, enjoy it, breathe?
Yes. Well, I have to say, I think because of the way that we restructured the way that we plan with our couples over the past few years, um, we have that rain plan conversation very
Yeah.
early on. So that I think weather is probably the most stressful thing that happens to our couples.
Yeah.
Um, I'm definitely the type of planner though that if your ceremony is outside, like I mean, it needs to be a hurricane. I am plan A all the way. At least get that ceremony outside for you. And
Mhm.
again, I think working with the different trusting your teams and the people that you've hired is so important. You will be able to let go if you trust your people,
Yeah.
because they will have your best interest at hand.
Yep.
And your people and your group and your creative partners, they should all have had multiple or at least like a month to a month and a half final meetings where we're sitting down and we're going over everything with the venue, the menus, like the timeline with your DJs, just or and your entertainment, just all of those creative partners. So you should feel good going into that. You should feel good about your rain plan. And having all of those details taken care of and
Yes.
feeling great about them probably like a month to 3 months in advance.
Yep. Yep.
And then the weekend of, it's just if you trust that the group with you, you're gonna breeze into that weekend and you just let it go. One other piece of advice is your guests only know what you've told them. So
Mm.
something does not happen the way that you planned it out, your guests are likely not going to know. So that I think is a really big piece of advice. So, and a lot of the times when you're in that wedding planning process, you're not telling your guests everything that's happening
Right.
anyways. You're giving them the information, the sweet spot of information that they need, where to book their hotels, the itinerary, the attire. They don't know the details of everything and what things are going to look like, or if you have a special guest coming for entertainment or, anything of that sort, or all of those special details that you've essentially planned and experiences for them. So they show up and they're like, oh my God, this is so cool. But they had no idea that that was going to happen. So they only know what you've
Totally.
shared with them, essentially.
That's
So,
great. That
um,
is really good advice.
yeah. And in the end, just do not forget what it is all about. And it is very hard to do that because there are so many weddings that are happening. And I have a love-hate relationship with social media. And I think that, especially when you're getting married somewhere like Cedar Lakes, we are at all the time, and I absolutely love working there. Um, but a lot of our couples, we have multiple couples that get married there, they're looking every weekend too to see what someone else is doing. And that happens just across the board
Yeah, I do it at the
anyway.
Hall of Fame. I do it every
Yeah,
time. Every time.
exactly. Every yeah.
Stalk.
So like one of my other things I always say, if you have the right team in place and everyone is communicating with each other, your florist, your designer, the planner, you guys, there should be no reason to be looking at what is happening for other people. You make that decision about something and then you focus on, what this really truly is all about. And I think when you prioritize, sit down and have a real conversation with your family, your fiance about what your priorities are. It's hard to lose, like you keep that at the forefront of this planning process. And then you also implement that and keep that in mind the weekend of as well too. And I think those kind of things will just allow you to be a little bit more at peace and less stressed out.
Mhm.
Because everyone is there to celebrate your love for each other and families coming together. And they're not going to, I mean, at the end of the day, they're not going to be like looking at the flower and being like, oh my God, this only has 7 petals. It really should have 12. Like, what the heck? So, just keeping in mind like what the purpose and really like what you're there for is
Right.
very helpful.
Which is love and your relationship and everyone there to
Yeah.
celebrate you guys starting your life together. Um,
Exactly. And then
and
probably going on a honeymoon either right after or like, in a couple months. So, you got a lot to look forward to. It's a
yeah.
it's a new chapter. So, and that's exciting.
Yep. So exciting. And we're really excited to have a really wonderful community of brides come in and to
Yes.
learn from you, Amanda, and to continue to learn from all of the amazing creative partners that we're going to be working with at What Do I Do? And everybody can go. The wait list to join What Do I Do
Yes.
is open. So everybody can go to whatdoidobrides.com. You join the wait list and you will get all the details when membership opens. Send it
Mhm.
to your friends, buy it as engagement gifts. And you'll get all the details on all of our events coming up. Mark your calendars, brides for April 18th in New York City at Janet
Mhm.
Mandel. And in the meantime, let us know your pain points in the industry. Let us know what you're struggling with because that's what we're here to help you get through. And so if we
Yeah.
know, we are able to provide those resources for you.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
that's, I know what I'm struggling with, but it might be different from somebody else.
Mhm.
And like I have a wonderful mother-in-law. Someone else's mother-in-law might be a problem. And
Yes.
so let us know. I want to hear
Yep.
it. We want to hear it. And also too,
All
you
of it.
want to comment, send in any um like questions that you might have, and we can always answer them on the podcast. We can get Amanda's
Mhm.
expertise. We can get any of our creative partners' expertise for you. Um, we're here to help.
Yeah, this is gonna be you are creating an amazing community, and there are some fabulous events that are coming up and guests on the podcast as well too. I'm really happy that we're able to do this monthly and just send the questions in because we definitely want to answer them for you, educate, and just create a safe place where this community can grow and everyone can learn. And this process does not need to be as stressful as it
Exactly.
is for a lot of you. And, we're here to try to solve that problem essentially.
Yep.
So send the questions in, because we're
Yes.
here for you.
DM them to What Do I Do Brides on Instagram or on TikTok. You can follow me at Ali Stagnita on Instagram and TikTok, and you can follow Amanda at Amanda Savory Events. Yes.
Yep. Yep. So
Amazing. Thank you guys so much for listening. Tune in next Monday for a new episode of Storytellers. And thank you, Amanda, for coming on.
thank you. Thank you so much.